Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about worms. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I know. Why are we thinking about this? Because we need to. It's a thinker. And luckily here, I have Cathy here who's going to be helping us think about this in a whole new light. Well, thank you so much, Cathy, for coming on to my show, sharing your time, your perspective. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you are sitting here with me, so I appreciate this. So let's just dive right in. When you hear the word worms, I mean, like, what does that make you think about?
What does that make me think about? Oh, I think about love. You know, worms have five hearts each. Hmm.
Really? They have five hearts in one little tiny thing?
Yes.
I
And
did
I
not.
think they were given so many hearts because people don't like worms.
Right. So they had to learn to love themselves in all their ways.
And we need them. We need the worms. So we got to have something to love them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, worms, when I think of worms, I automatically think of the movie Dune. And how they had those worms be extremely big and they showed their teeth. I mean, somebody said that if you actually magnify a worm, that's actually how they look. Is that right?
Not really. No, they don't have teeth. They actually don't have teeth and they don't have any bones. They have no structure. They don't depend on us, but we depend on the worms.
Oh, and how do we depend on the worms?
The worms are the soil makers, the earthworms. We're talking about earthworms. So the earthworms are the soil makers. They convert organic matter into soil so we can grow more nutrient-rich food.
Mm.
Now, those are the worms out in the wild, the free-range worms. What I'm talking about or thinking about is composting worms. So worms
Hmm.
in the house to compost our food scraps and paper so that we can grow food naturally with their poop.
Oh, that is so interesting. So would you like I know that there's people who have those composting bins. So you would recommend putting those worms into those composting bins to help break it down faster?
That's right. Yes. And it's a wonderful option for people that don't have space for outdoor composting if they live in a condo or townhouse or in a small subdivision where there isn't a yard. You're like, I don't want the composter to take up my whole yard.
Yeah.
Right? So you can do this in the house and also places where it's too hot or too cold. I happen to be in Canada, so we have winter 6 months a year.
Right, right. I'm up north. I'm in Wisconsin, so I know exactly how that is. It really does stay cold up north. Oh, so how did you really get into the worms?
This is my mission. It's why I was put on Earth. It's the 23rd anniversary of Cathy's Crawley Composters. And I started in
Um,
2002. Um, I'm located in Canada, just north of Toronto, largest city in Canada. And our landfill closed in 2002, and we started to export our garbage to the US.
Oh,
Shame on
I
us.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Yes. Shame on us as Canadians for shipping our garbage out of the country, and double shame on the Americans for accepting our garbage for cash, but not shaming the people. It's the governments, the
Yeah.
decision makers.
Yeah, the way that they decided to structure that, because I think especially if you add worms into it, it really would help break it down and reutilize that for other aspects that you can use. I mean, with the ground freezing up at a majority of the time, it's nice to actually have a place where the worms can, you know what I mean, thrive. I mean, so I guess can worms thrive in very cold weather then?
They can. Worms are present on every continent except Antarctica. And what happens in the fall when they sense the temperature change in places that experience winter, the cold, I mean, is they hibernate. So they breed more than usual, deposit their little eggs throughout the soil or the compost, and then they hibernate. So they tie themselves together, they cluster together, they don't need a lot of personal space. And if that compost freezes, the worms won't survive, but the eggs will overwinter, which is what keeps the species going.
Wow, I am learning so much. I'm so glad that I had this conversation with you because this is truly interesting. What really got me interested in worms was when I was living with a friend and she had reptiles and she would feed her reptiles these bluish, yellowish worms that kind of look like caterpillars, but they were supposed to be really juicy and healthy for the reptiles. And I was just like, I never knew there were different types of worms. I just thought they were all the same. But I mean, are there different, like, how many species of worms are there? Would you know?
Yes, 3 to 4,000 different species have been identified so far. For
Wow.
sure, there's more that we haven't met yet.
Wow, that is so interesting. So are there any cons to even even worms?
Uh, Um, hmm.
Because there seems like there's so many pros. I mean, are there any cons of them?
Well, there's no toxic worms in Canada that I know of. Um, I would say not really. All the species have their place.
Yes,
Things
I've
do
heard
get
that.
moved from place to place, and so things can become invasive, I guess. Like they say that there were no earthworms in North America after following the Ice Age. I have trouble believing that, but that's what the history books say. I don't know if that's the truth, and that they came here, from Europe or whatever on the ships in plant in soil when we were
Okay.
transporting stuff. So the eggs may have come. They also talk about the earthworms eating the forest. The earthworms don't just travel there. That's human by design. That's say fishers, they go fishing. You buy your worms in a city, say at the bait shop, and then you go fishing. If you've got some worms left, you're not bringing them back to the bait shop. You're just dumping them where they are. So now they're there. Right.
Mhm.
So then they're very adaptable. They are very adaptable. They don't travel very far. The earthworms go up and down the same hole. So they're really not traveling far. They're the tills of the soil. They're
Oh,
the
that's
plows.
interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, because I'm imagining it like if somebody had like an ant farm and you can see it through the glass. I mean, could you actually technically saying have a worm farm like that where you have it in a glass and you can see it move up and down, or is that a thing?
Not yes and no, sort of. They don't like the light. So if you
Oh,
want, if
okay.
for schools, I do a lot of school workshops, and the teachers will often ask, "Can we have this in a like an aquarium type thing?"
Yeah.
Great idea. If you do, you would need to have like a curtain or a paper on it to cover the light. And then when you take it off, you could see the trails, but you wouldn't be able to watch the worms because they would go inward. Just like when they come out when it's raining, they come out, but then when the sun comes out, they have to get back downstairs.
So they're kind of like nocturnal,
They're
right?
nocturnal. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, night
Oh,
crawlers. Mhm.
night crawlers. Oh, that's interesting. So what do you recommend for people who say that they have this fear of just touching them? I mean, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so that is a learned fear. It's not like
Mm.
snakes that it is or it could be an innate fear. This is a
Okay.
learned fear where the parents or somebody they had an experience with a worm. Maybe after a rainy day somebody chased them around or just being creeped out. I remember as a child after a rainy day there were so many worms so it was like, ew, you didn't want to step on them. So if you had an experience as a child, you may be freaked out. They can't harm us. And I have had teachers say, "Oh, what a great idea. I'm afraid of worms. What do I do?" I say, "This is what you do. You bring worms in the class. You have the students take care of it, and you let them know how ridiculous your fear is. Because fear is just the unknown,
Yeah,
right? What
it
is it?
is.
Future events appearing real, or whatever the acronym stands for. And that's it. Worms can't hurt us. They don't have teeth. So they can't bite us. If they get out of the container, they die outside that container because they're almost 90% water. So they can't survive outside of their environment. If they crawl out, there's something wrong with the bin, like it's too acidic or too dry. There's not enough food or there's too much food. Something is happening, so action is required.
Oh, that is interesting. I never knew that they would end up dying if they leave their environment. And because they're water, they need the moisture. Is that right? So
That's it.
if they leave their home, they leave their little burrow and they scurry over, that they usually would die if they don't find dirt again.
Well, I'm talking about in the house. So if you had them in
Oh,
a
okay.
container outside, they're going to be fine because they're going to make their way. They've survived millions of years,
Yeah.
right? They were around with the dinosaurs, so there's not many dinosaurs remaining. I know there's alligators, snakes, and birds, but the T-Rex is not here anymore.
Yeah, thank God. That is interesting. So, like, how long can worms grow up to? Like, how long?
So the composting worms that I'm talking about, the red wigglers, they're a small species. They're skinny. There's 800 to 1,000 in a pound. So that's how small they are. And they would grow maybe a couple of inches long.
Oh,
The
okay.
longest worm, I mean, there are longer species. The longest one
Yeah.
is the Gippsland worm. It's located in Australia and it can grow up to 22 meters.
Wow.
Massive, big, big worm.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Wow. I didn't even know. I couldn't even imagine that. Oh my goodness. I mean, at that point, I would
That's
think
the
it's like
dune
a little.
worm.
Right, that's the dune worm at that point. Like, oh my goodness, what is that coming towards me? Oh my, but if I think if I was in Australia and anything came towards me, I would be highly suspicious. But I think that is so interesting. Wow. Wow. This has been a really interesting conversation. So it's like, I guess it leads to my next question. I mean, I know you told us that you started this in around 2002, experimenting, but what really made you really fall in love with worms and all that they do? I mean, you have websites about it. I mean, you go to schools and you educate other people about it. I mean, what really made this light inside you really turn on?
As an entrepreneur, I saw, whatever you're specialize in, that's what you see. And I saw, as an avid gardener and composter, I saw food waste everywhere. And when we call it garbage, it is. That's what it is. Whatever we call it, that's what it is. It's a resource. It's food for something else. So if we change our mind, so when our landfill closed, 6 million people in the greater Toronto area, half live in condos. So half the people were not being served with the possibility of composting in their backyard. And I get that not everybody composts. I
Yeah.
understand that. This was an option for everybody to do it. And as an avid environmentalist, we all eat, we all create food waste. This is one thing that we can do to help mitigate climate change. By managing our food scraps on site, they're not being trucked around, which, the fossil fuels, all of that, all of those things, and it ends up in landfill. If we throw our scraps in landfill, it gets preserved because they squish the oxygen out and they're starting to mine landfills. And they've pulled out the core of a landfill and found newspapers still intact from 50 years ago. You can still read the story. But things don't break down in landfill. It's a myth. So
Mm.
this is something that we can all do. We can feel good. And when we create that soil, then we can have a little garden, or if you live in a condo, you can have some planter boxes on your balcony or in the window. You can grow herbs, you can grow some greens like lettuce or kale. When we grow the food, we don't waste that food. We took time to grow it. We watched it grow. Gardeners are the most hopeful people, right? You plant a seed and then 3 months later, maybe you get something.
Yes, yes. Gardeners do have this patience that a lot of other people don't have. You know what I mean? This beauty of knowing that one day something beautiful will come out of this. One day something will be utilized from what I'm doing today. And I think that's something that I wish everybody can see, that what you do today is like planting a seed, is growing something. You can be a gardener of your own life, you know what I mean? By just changing the way you think, changing the way you act, and just taking advantage of today. You can't change the world, but you can change your today, and it can eventually change your world. So I think that is something that gardeners truly specialize in. And that's something that I told myself once I move out of the city. I am going to start a garden. I want my own little thing and I want to compost. But my good thing is, how do you necessarily know if the difference between a worm and a maggot? You know what I mean? Because maggots, I mean, they develop in your trash. I mean, but how can you differentiate the two?
Wonderful. Thank you. Maggots are just fly larvae.
Hmm.
Maggots
Okay.
are larvae, so they're not worms. They kind of wiggle like worms and whatever, and they're
Yeah.
attracted to meat.
Oh, okay.
They're carnivores. So the flies will lay their eggs on the meat and then, it's rotting meat. You don't put meat in your composter.
Hmm.
So you shouldn't,
Okay.
not that you won't necessarily ever have maggots, because fruit flies also have, the maggots, which you can't even see them because they're so small.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, just, I think we need to really change our mind about these things in nature that we go, oh my gosh, a spider, ooh, squish it. Or these
Yeah.
things like, oh, that even the mosquito, I'm not a fan of mosquitoes, but they must play a role because why would they have been created?
Yeah. I mean, all of these things that are just naturally in our environments, I don't think people should really mess with because when we start messing with it, I mean, we see it with bees. Oh my goodness, if God forbid anything happened to the bees, it would affect a good amount of the population. You know what I mean? It would affect the flowers, it would affect our breathing, it would affect the environment. I mean, people don't realize that. So it's like to mess with nature's process of just managing itself, I mean, is something that we don't even realize. You know what I mean? And I think it's something that people need to realize that nature will always come back. Nature will always come back fighting to win its place. And we see it all the time. I mean, look at abandoned places. You see abandoned places, what happened? Nature comes back to take advantage of it. Nature takes back its land. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And I think that's something that people don't realize that like nature is here to help us. You know what I mean? It's not here to hurt us. It's here to help us. It's here to teach us something that we don't pay attention to because we're so focused on whatever that we're focusing on. You know what I mean? So it allows us to come back to ourselves. You know what I mean? Allows us to come back into the of now. So it really is interesting. So it leads me to my next question. What is a pet peeve of yours?
Ah, food waste. Actually, you know what a pet peeve of mine is I don't care if people smoke cigarettes. A pet peeve is when they just flick them out the window or they're walking down the street and then they just drop their cigarette like it's just going to go nowhere. No, that little toxic filter is now toxic. And then it
Yeah,
goes into the waterway and that
yeah,
the chemicals leach into our water, into our soil, or an animal will eat it. And
yeah.
so a pet peeve of mine is I guess litter bugs in general, like people that just th feel the need, like water bottles. We walk around with our water bottles, not me, because I always have my reusable water bottle. I
Mhm.
never buy plastic water bottle.
Plastics. Yeah.
No. Um, you're carrying your water bottle, and then once it's empty, it's trash, and we just throw it away. And most things do not get recycled. Like people are like, "Oh, it can get recycled." Yeah, only if it lands in the bin, and then there's not a windstorm the day of the truck collection, the garbage
Yeah.
collection, and it doesn't blow down the street and then end up in the ocean.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I actually even wrote a book about that for children's called Mr.
Did
Water, where he talks about not using plastic and prefers glass and everything has to be in a glass bottle. And yeah, because I am with you there. Just I don't know what it was. One day I realized just I was living down south in Florida and I was just noticing just the trash pile up and people just didn't really recycle as much. And I was just like, all of this could be utilized in some way or another. You know what I mean? And I would dive myself more into the recycling environment and trying to understand how it worked and just you can recycle glass to the point where you can make it into sand, you can make it into so many things that are reutilized. I mean, like, oh my goodness, glass is so precious, you know what I mean? It doesn't hold toxins like plastics does.
mm,
And it's I'm with you there. And I'm also with you with littering. Oh my goodness. One thing that I hate seeing around town because I live in the city is just people throwing their trash or they're no longer stuff in their car and just throwing it out. I'm just like, the bin is right there. You know what I mean? All you have to do is literally just walk there, get out of your car and just walk there. No, what do? They just throw it on the floor and wait for somebody else to pick it up. Like, if you constantly wait for the next person to do the right thing, then you are not helping it. You are only the cause of this chaos that's in this world because everybody's waiting for somebody else to do the right thing. But it's like, no, you need to do the right thing. You need to take your trash and throw it in the trash bin if it's trash. So yes, that's
or
that's
take it home
that's a
with you. I mean,
yeah. Take
just
it home
take it
with you.
home.
Exactly, because I've learned that in Japan they actually carry little trash like Ziplocs in their bags with them, and there's no trash on the floor because they separate their trash. They separate their trash from actual trash to compost to recyclable, like everything in their little and then little bag as they're walking around. And if they see something, they'll actually pick it up and do the right thing and just throw it in. You know what I mean? And then save it for when they go home, and then they'll separate it. So I'm just like,
Mm.
that is such a value that we can take because if we just put that in implement into our lives like, okay, how can I be of service to the world, to the planet? You know what I mean? Like people like, "Oh, you go electric and you're helping the planet." But then what are you doing with your trash? Because that has a bigger impact. Like there are billions of people in this world and there's so much trash. Like we can recycle half of it. And I love the companies. I support all those companies who recycle and like recycle it these products and make clothes out of them. Oh my goodness, I love that when they make jewelry, they make all these creative things
Mm.
out of stuff that are recyclable. And it's like I love that creativity because those are the people who are helping, I believe in my opinion. But anyways, if you could have a superpower, what could be your superpower?
Oh, it would be that my superpower would be um, that there's no more war. My superpower would be like I would wave a wand and war would like we would just have world peace. That would be my
Mm.
superpower.
Just peace on earth, right?
Peace on the
Just
earth.
just everybody calm down, not so serious. This it's like
Everyone's
this.
seeing everyone. Everyone just like I see you. Oh, I see you. We're one.
Yes, it's
And
about having
yeah.
value. It's like seeing that you have value for who you are and what you do, and it's not a competition, and it's not this delusion of superiority complex. You know what I mean? Those people who feel the need to have power, to have say, to feel mighty. I mean, I feel like it's an egotistical thing that they're
Mm.
dealing with, and they need to break it down to realize, like, hey, now. We're all whole. We're all beautiful. We're all perfect as we are. And we all have our own special gifts to help each other because at the end of the day, this is only one earth. We only have one planet to live on, to be everything that we are meant to be. And it's small. We all impact each other one way or another. You know what I mean? Just because something happens in Canada doesn't mean it doesn't affect us in the States. And just because something happens across the world in Asia doesn't mean it doesn't affect us here in the States either. You know what I mean? So it's like everybody needs to realize like we all truly do impact each other in one way or another. And oh my goodness, that would be a great superpower. I'm with you. If you could have that wish and I could grant it to you, dun, 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 it's all yours.
Yay, world peace is possible. Yoop.
All right, exactly, exactly. Oh, I love this conversation. It's sad to know that time is catching up to us. So, what can be some lasting words of wisdom to keep us off thinking?
I would say consider either composting or worm composting. If you don't have outdoor space, think about worm composting done in the house so it doesn't matter where you live if you're comfortable the worms are. And uh, it's a wonderful way to teach children about nature, about what happens to our food, where the food goes when it breaks down. And then it closes the loop. So once we create this black gold, this nutrient-rich soil, you teach the children how to grow food. And then they know that food doesn't come from the grocery store. It comes from somewhere before that, where what happens before the grocery store. And then you
Yeah.
get involved, and there's actually antidepressant microbes in the soil. So when we have our hands in the soil without gloves, we're getting the benefit of those microbes right in the soil. How wonderful.
Oh, that is beautiful. Oh, that is wonderful. Oh my goodness, that is a wonderful thing, especially for those people who are anti-medications and things like that. I mean, that's a great way of just grounding yourself. You know what I mean? And I think
Grounding with
that
the soil.
yes,
I
yes,
see
that
what you
really.
did.
Yeah, I know, right there, all the pun, da da. It does because I've heard somebody say that that's what had helped them center themselves by just taking their shoes off, taking their socks off, and just stepping on soil and just getting their feet, like their little toesies in the dirt and just feeling it. But now with what you said, it makes sense. It gives them that relief. You know what I mean? That release that anxiety, release the stress, and just remembering where you are in your moment, in your now. Oh, that is so beautiful. I think that is something that everyone really needs to think about and consider. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know more about Cathy, because how could you not? How could you not after this conversation? Please tell me how could you not? Because this has truly been an extremely Oh, an amazing conversation to really consider how are you using your waste? How can you recycle? Where's your mark in this world? You know what I mean? How are you truly impacting the
Mm.
world around you? And how can you really change it? These hard questions that we need to ask. And then it could really start with the children around us. You know what I mean? That's why I
Mm.
wrote my children's book, Mr. Water and Little Miss Puddles, so we can consider how water truly impacts us, how glass and plastic can truly save us, how just placing something in the trash that belongs in the trash and something that belongs in recycling, place it in the right container. All of these things put together truly makes us think about ourselves and how we can really move differently and move more purposely in this world. So please check her out. I have her photo on my website, or if you're listening in audio on the YouTube, go there in the description. You'll find access to her website so that you can continue on thinking about this great matter on hand, right? So with that being said, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.